Hello, everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Engineering. My name is Mark Eastburn. I'm the teacher for this class. The easiest way to reach me is either through email or through an app called Remind. This is the code to join. It's an app that's available on your phone, either Android or iPhone. It's also a website, remind.com. That's where I'll try to put out reminders in terms of projects that might be due or assignments that students need to get moving on. In addition, it's a way for students to contact me. It's something that I have on my phone, so the fastest way to get in contact with me at any time would be through Remind, and email would be the second fastest way in order to contact me. At the moment, I don't have access to a voice message in terms of checking messages, somewhere to call the school. So my biggest recommendation is to contact me one of these two ways. And parents are certainly welcome to sign up for Remind, as students are. About me, my education, you'll notice my background, at least as far as the educational preparation, is primarily in biology. I have my bachelor's degree in biology, a certificate advanced study that's kind of like a minor in Spanish at St. Mary's College of Maryland. I got my master's in biology at Villanova University, where I did a thesis on plant-eating spiders in Central America. In between this time, I served in the Peace Corps. That's where most of my engineering experience comes through. I was living in a mountain village, a rural village in central Panama, and that was where I really had to do a lot of problem solving. And that was where I get my practical experience for engineering in terms of soil management and irrigation systems and all sorts of tools that I could help my fellow neighbors in that community use in order to better produce food and to better preserve the environment. I have my certification from the College of New Jersey in Spanish elementary education. I was an elementary school teacher for 17 years before coming to the high school. Biology and chemistry. In addition to that, I'm a published children's book author. This is my book. It's a middle grade novel, so like grades 4 to 7. It's about a boy who shapeshifts into a hyena. That was a lot of fun to write. I have another manuscript that I'm hoping to send to my agent very soon and maybe get that out to editors as well. In addition to that, you may hear crickets chirping behind me at some point, and when we are back in the classroom, your students will definitely hear chirping because I do raise insects. I'm the mentor for the entomophagy club, so that's eating insects. I really challenge students to think about that, and teachers and parents and anyone who will listen, because in order to raise enough food for everyone to eat with a growing population, we're going to have to get serious about eating insects. If everyone wants hamburger on this planet, there's not enough land to raise all those cows in order to produce the meat. Now, biologically engineering meat that grows in a laboratory is one possible solution, but insects are very efficient processors of food and converting that into usable protein that people may eat. So hamburgers might be out of the question for everyone. Bug burgers is someone that everyone can eat. I also love to photograph nature. I love to spend time in nature. Here I am in Panama when I was conducting my graduate research. This is one of the spiders that I was actually studying. I was a teacher at Johnson Park for 10 years. I released some turtles at JP, and that's where you see this picture of a turtle at Johnson Park. I also worked at Riverside for 7 years as a science teacher, and those of you who may have had children who went there and know Mr. Cirillo, he was a great mentor to me. He allowed me to get a frog pond for the courtyard at Riverside, and that's one of the frogs that's in the courtyard, and I still love going back to Riverside and Johnson Park as well. A little bit more about me. I was part of an actual viral story in 2016 about a lizard that a little girl at Riverside found in some salad greens, or her mother found it in salad greens. It ended up being a story that went around the world. So even today, if you look lizard salad school in a Google search or any kind of other search engine, you'll find tons of articles. It went around the world. That experience kind of led me to see the enthusiasm that students have for reptiles. I started looking for opportunities, found one in North Carolina where they had workshops on using reptiles in the classroom in order to get students more involved in science. And when I came back from a workshop in North Carolina, I told students that the eastern box turtle is the state reptile of North Carolina, which prompted students to ask, what's the state reptile for New Jersey? And it turned out there isn't a state reptile in New Jersey. So that started a campaign. We started in 2016, and it started a campaign to recognize the bog turtle, which is a very endangered small turtle. Stronghold of its habitat is in New Jersey. That was the turtle that students chose as the state reptile for New Jersey. It was signed into law in 2018. Governor Murphy came to Riverside School to sign it into law, and then I was able to show up in the background a little bit at least. Here's where we had students testify to the to two different subcommittees in the Senate. This is Senator Kip Bateman, and the General Assembly with Assemblyman Zwicker and Assemblyman Fryman. So students came to present and make the case for the bog turtle to be the state reptile. And I also like to point out that was the very first bill that Governor Murphy signed into law. Now on to our engineering. I think engineering is essential for education because it teaches students to solve problems. Breaking something is a way to, of course, encourage engineering. I won't offer free coffee, I'm sorry to say. But there's also this. There's got to be a better way to do something. I'm going to challenge students to think about that as they proceed through my class. I also want them to be aware of the opportunities that engineering presents in terms of income. These all pay very well. All students, it's a challenging curriculum they'll go through, but if they have the inspiration to want to pursue some sort of a career with a bachelor's degree, they're making a very good salary. I'm actually very heartened to see that a lot of students were interested in computer programming when I did an initial survey, and there's a huge potential for job growth in software developing. I'm hoping to do some computer engineering projects over the course of this semester. And this is a semester-long class. This will continue in the spring with exercise science, which a lot of the students are also signed up for. Even without a college degree, there are opportunities. Now, they don't pay as well, but I did want to make students aware that installing solar panels is a career that pays fairly well right out of high school, and there's an enormous potential for job growth. And this is all related to engineering and having a true interest in fixing things, improving things, making life better for people. This is what engineers do, and I'm hoping that I can continue to communicate that to students. Another idea that I carry with me, another inspiration for me, are the words of Carl Sagan, who says, every kid starts out as a natural-born scientist, and then we beat it out of them. A few trickle through the system with their wonder and enthusiasm for science intact. Now, as an elementary school teacher for so many years, I can confirm that this is true. Children in general have a strong interest in the world, how the world works. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, students are discouraged from pursuing careers in science and engineering. So part of my job, I feel, is to find ways of getting students to recapture that love for science that they may have had, or that love for engineering they may have had. And that's why I'm hoping this effort, this class, can be a career-building activity, a community-building activity. In terms of my philosophy on education, I'm drawn to one of the first workshops I ever attended as a teacher, and this was at a education conference in southeastern Pennsylvania, where a student had just come back from Japan and used a scene like this as a criticism of her perception of the educational system where she had been. Whereas she saw it, students were clipped and cut back to meet the rigid expectations of a teacher. Any growth that a student might want to show outside of the expectations was clipped back and discouraged. And students were encouraged to conform to an ideal that society would place on them. What she saw as the alternative to that was what she considered the American educational system, where she saw this big, majestic, enormous tree growing in a field. However, Another teacher was really instrumental in pointing out a huge flaw in this line of thinking. And he pointed out that trees in nature don't grow like this. Trees in nature don't just kind of expand and grow out in all directions because they're actually part of a community. And usually, in most cases, trees don't have this situation where all of the land around them has been cleared. And I thought the forest metaphor is so much stronger, and this is kind of the community I'm going to try to build in this class. If we look at an actual healthy forest, trees have roots, which we can't ignore. And not only that, but trees have roots that are connected. My job is hopefully to try to build connections within our community. And even though some trees may be taller, some trees may be shorter, that doesn't mean that the taller trees are better than the smaller trees. It doesn't mean that certain trees that are different are any less important than trees that might look the same. I'm trying to stress to students that for an ecosystem or a community to be healthy, we need diversity. I've been to tree plantations in Panama, where I was in the Peace Corps, where they've cleared the healthy forest. They've replaced the forest with one kind of tree. This is a very unhealthy community, if you can't tell by what it looks like on the ground. These trees themselves are not very healthy. Without the connections in a community between diverse community members, the entire forest suffers. If this small tree were happened to be cleared out of the way, this big tree would suffer. So the big tree has no right to say in any way that it's better than anyone else. If the big tree gets better grades than someone else, or the big tree has more money than someone else, that's no right for this smaller tree to be discounted. Because as we can see, that smaller tree also has very strong roots. That tree also has important connections that are keeping this tree and this tree going. If this tree were to be removed, these trees would suffer. And I really hope I can stress to students how important that might be. Students have no right to assume that they are the only tree in a community, or the best tree, or the biggest tree. What they need to do is realize we need to build connections for our entire community to thrive. Otherwise, we're in a very unhealthy community. In tree plantations like this, there are no butterflies, there are no birds, there's no sounds, there's just a kind of, eerie silence walking through these places. And I really hope that we have an active, dynamic, happy classroom where everyone's building these connections and everyone's growing stronger together. That's kind of where I wanted to take this first presentation. I hope everyone's ready to jump on board, and I'm looking forward to this year with exercise science and engineering. And so far, I've really enjoyed the classes we've had so far, and I hope that continues. I'm hoping students can start to come out of their shells a little bit, be a little more talkative. For me, that's how we build those connections and make a very dynamic class. In case you think that I missed anything, here's my contact information. I have office hours posted on my Canvas website as well. You're welcome to contact me if you want. Welcome to reach out if there's anything you want to talk about. Any concerns you might have, I'm more than happy to discuss those things. Because really, I'm hoping to build a community that's rich and supportive of everyone who happens to be my student.